Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bunbun. This is our House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 4 reaction and review. I understand, I'll just say this from the get go, that
Mhm.
there are probably a lot of feelings, mixed reactions, sadness, anger. I'm just sad, man. Like, I loved Rhaenys. This was one
Oh,
of my favorite characters. She and Corlys, they were so happy, and of course, that's the problem. If you are in a happy relationship in House of the Dragon, George R. R. Martin, or in this case, showrunner Ryan Condal, is going to pull the rug out from under you, and somebody got to be miserable.
I love Bernice. She should have been the queen. I know we've been,
Mhm.
joking around on here,
Oh yeah,
team
yeah,
black, team green. It's all like fun and games or whatever, but everybody loves Bernice. I
yeah.
mean,
Yes.
she should have just been the queen. Like really, she would have been so amazing. And to see her go out as such a warrior, she knew she wasn't going to end up really being able to fight against Vagar. I mean, Vagar and Aemond, they're just like a real life cheat code. He's
Yeah,
so big, he's so tough. This is her daughter's dragon. I mean, it's so heartbreaking.
it really was. Like there was such a there is such a David versus Goliath
Yeah.
aspect to what was going on, where I think a lot of what at least I'm thinking about in this video comes down to this aspect of fate. Do you run from what seems like near insurmountable odds? Do you embrace it? Are you prepared for whatever is coming? I think
Yeah.
Renice in this episode, she does a lot of preparation for what is
Mhm.
coming, but then when it's finally there, she doesn't run from it. She
Nope.
understands that death could be a consequence, and unfortunately, it hits her, but not before she makes a real spectacle of things in this Dance of Dragons that is now officially upon us. It's just such a great episode. I think this is what a lot of people were waiting for.
Yep.
It's also one of those things, though, that they can't do a battle like this every episode because if they did, it wouldn't be anywhere near as exciting once we actually get to watch it.
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard the comments that some people are like, "Oh, the season's boring. It's too slow." I
Yeah.
have loved it. Like the build up to get to here. I mean, we're only in episode 4. Like we're only in the middle of the season here. There isn't that many episodes before we got to this, which was so crazy. I mean, we lost Renice. I mean, let's also pour one out for Sunfire the Burnt and his rider Aegon the Drunk. Are they really dead? Are they injured? Nothing great happened here either.
We'll talk through that. We'll try to answer a lot of questions that are just sort of like floating around in the House of the Dragon ether, but before we do go further, be sure to subscribe. Smash that like button as well. Like we have so much more coming on House of the
Mhm.
Dragon this season. There are more action spectacles ahead. It may not be every episode, but rest assured, this is not the only thing of this scale you're going to be seeing.
Absolutely. And if you want to help support us further, you can join our Patreon. We'll leave a link for you below. And thank you so much to everyone who has joined and is supporting us. We really appreciate it.
We really, really do.
All right, let's just get into the Aegon of it all. I mean, he was definitely in his feelings this episode. We had Alicent basically sit down and tell him, your job is to sit there and look pretty. We want you to do nothing. That's your job. And I think with him being put into this position that he never wanted as king, his son was killed in his home, sort of under his watch. He's the king, he's a husband, he's a father. His son was killed in his home. Nobody respects him, nobody wants to listen to him, watching him, at the table with Aemond. They both have their D's out where they're talking, Aemond's high Valyrian fluent. And then Aegon's over here being like, cheeseburger. He just doesn't know what is going on. It's been a really short period of time. It's been a few weeks since Viserys has died. So, I mean, he's thrown into this position. Nobody respects him. Nobody's listening to him. And then he finally has this talk with Alicent, who's just like, sit there and look pretty. And I think at that point, he just didn't know what to do anymore to get somebody to take him seriously except get drunk and get on his dragon and go in. I mean, he's so lost.
I think we really need Logan Roy to show up and go up to Aegon and tell him he's not a serious person, because
He is not.
he's not. But I think, unfortunately, and in some ways similar to a Roman and Kendall Roy, he thinks he's a serious person. He thinks that he's got kingly material. He's out to prove himself, and I think this is what makes him very different from a lot of the Game of Thrones kings that we saw over time, because sure, he's got a couple of things in common with a Joffrey, but he's not Joffrey. He
No.
is very, very much, he's a young adult who has found himself in this place of responsibility that he did not expect himself to be. He has all these different aspects of him that he's thinking about. He's mourning, so he's going through this sympathetic loss, but he's also going through this challenge where he didn't take a lot of his upbringing seriously. He just sort of dilly-dallied around, did some horrible stuff. He never really thought he would be in this position. And then lo and behold, he's in this position, and it's sort of this oh no consequences, where he didn't pay attention to High Valyrian. He didn't earn the respect of anybody before he was king. And so now he's in this position where he expects everything should be handed to him, and it's not, and he's reacting as a result of that. And I think his drunken sunfire escapade is really born out of this desire of, okay, I have to give them a reason to respect me. I have to give them a reason so that my name is going to go down in the history books. And because I'm king, I know best, and by knowing best, it apparently also means disregarding any plans that were actually for what's going on at Rook's Rest in advance, and that everything's just going to go right out the window.
Yeah, because it seems like, as much as we like to rail on Kristen Cole,
Yeah.
he is somebody who does have real battle experience, and there's a reason for what he's doing. I mean, you've got Team Black over here being like, he's going after Rook's Rest?
Yeah.
Why? Like, this makes no sense. But a lot of it is, they know that Team Black has more dragons. Yes, they have Vhagar over on Team Green. He's the biggest, baddest dragon in all the land. But, numbers can take out even the biggest, right? So there is this sort of feeling for Kristen Cole and working with Aemond, who, oh my goodness, he's just like so strategic, brute force. We'll get into him. But like, with Kristen Cole, this idea of like, okay, we're going to take over this much smaller place because we need to draw out a dragon or two, and we need Aemond to be able to take them out. We have to level this playing field because, boots on the ground is not going to work if there's dragons in the sky. So we need to be able to, dwindle their numbers of dragons so that we can actually be able to win this.
This is the one thing that Kristen Cole is actually good at. And
He
here
is.
you have Aegon being like, no, 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 no. I
Oh
who
my
have
God.
no experience in battle, I know best. This would be like me going and applying to be a nuclear scientist or something like that, where it's because I've played a lot of Fallout, I automatically think that I'm going to be capable of solving the world's energy problems or something like that. Yeah. Aegon, you have probably thought a lot in your head about what it's like to be a hero, but that's not what it actually means to be a hero.
No, and I think for Aegon, a lot of his fears are coming to pass just about whether or not Aemond is really on his side or not. We saw them, like I said, at the table in front of everybody, throwing lobs back and forth of sort of like, who's really in charge? Where, Aegon's just like, you guys are making these strategic moves, and like, I don't even know what's going on. And like, I don't understand. And I think that a lot of this is his fears, like, is Aemond trying to take the throne? And I think, the answer is yes. It is something that he's wanted. He's never really made it a secret. He did pay attention in his studies. He did train to be able to go into battle. He has trained to be a king should the opportunity arise. And I know that the creators behind the show are kind of like, let's talk about Aemond's motivation. Is he doing this for this reason or that reason or whatever? It feels like he saw an opportunity here when he saw his drunk brother, flying overhead. He had gotten, the horns. Come on out. Let's go. Kristen's giving him the signal. And Aemond's just like, let's see how this plays Well, we'll just see if maybe my brother might die. He's got no heir, so who gets to be the king? Moi.
This is also unbelievably messy, and this is a part of, I think, the joy of watching House of the Dragon. I know it's kind of morbid to say joy in this context, but sure, we have Team Green and we have Team Black, but these two teams are the most dysfunctional teams known to mankind. Where you have here is Aegon, who is the quote unquote leader of Team Green, but he's not great at it. And here you have Aemond, who is actually pretty great at it, who realizes, okay, I could be the person who really leads this particular side to victory, to long term prosperity, and all of these sort of things. But fate can be a cruel mistress, Aemond. And in this instance, you realize that, okay, this may be an opportunity. Maybe fate has served up your brother on this silver platter. But the irony in all of this is that even though you find yourself in this opportunity that you never thought you were going to have, you're going to be able to say after the fact, if Aegon is gone here, that, oh, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I went in here with a specific mandate that I am going to take out Rhaenys to get this other dragon out of the way. Aegon went rogue. It is his fault what happened. And he has this opportunity, but the problem here, and this is why I think fate is just laughing at him, Aegon's probably not dead. I don't think Aegon is dead. I think if Aegon was dead, they would have shown him being dead in this episode.
Yeah, that's the thing. Aemond shot his shot. I mean, there's no denying that he clearly did this on purpose. He was, Aegon's like, "Oh, yes, here comes my brother. Thank the gods." And Aemond's just like, "You remember last Wednesday what you did to me when you was laughing at me?" Yeah, Dracarys. Like, Aegon has taken so much from Aemond over the years. He's taken his dignity. He's made him insecure. He's picked on him since they were kids. Yes, of course, there's brotherly pick on each other. That is something that happens. But clearly it has sat in him so much over time that Aemond is just over it now. That's like, okay, as long as these two die, the only person to tell the story is me. So I can just say whatever I want and nobody's going to really know what happened up there. And I can just, weave this the way that I wish.
And I think it's amplified further by this idea of, I will be seen as the hero of Rook's Rest. I will be seen as the person who was able to take out Rhaenys, severely weaken the other side. And even if Aegon does survive this, he's going to be the king who barely survived versus Aemond, the big heroic figure who does all of these sweeping moments. And I think Aemond's motivations in all of this are complicated. I think a lot of it's what you said. Aegon has treated him pretty terribly for a lot of his life. But then there's also this other aspect of it where I think Aemond is also being, in his own way, oddly selfless in that I think he's thinking a lot about his mother. I think he's thinking a lot about other parts of his family and thinking about what's going to make the best future for all of them. Because,
legacy.
Yeah, he knows he's not just completely living in this bubble where he's not able to see what else is going on. He sees how miserable Aegon is making other people out there. And I think he knows that if he is in charge, he can facilitate a much better life for a lot of these people. And he does love his mama. His mama was one of the only people who stood up for him at times last season. And we all see how miserable Aegon is making Alicent at this point.
Okay, so when we see Criston Cole coming into the forest and we see Aemond standing over Aegon with his sword out, was he going to kill him or not? Because it was in such a way that it looked almost like Aemond was in the middle of sheathing his sword. But if Criston hadn't shown up and Aemond had walked up and saw that Aegon wasn't dead, was Aegon going to get killed? I feel like it.
I think probably. I think it's a situation where if Aemond could find a way to do it where nobody was the wiser, and obviously dead men tell no tales, I don't think it's going to be a situation where it would ever come back to haunt him. I don't think anybody is going to question how in the world Aegon would die after, one, all of the dragon fire, and two, the falling that happens as a result of all this. But, because Kristen Cole showed up, it's all kind of moot at this point.
Yeah, watching Aemond pick up the dagger, it just feels very much like the motivation was, I need to be king. I'm better suited for this position because I'm the second son. I wasn't going to get this chance, but if, Aegon is gone, he has no heirs, I can get into this position. I feel like I can lead everybody in a way that, would be good for the realm, would be great for my family, sort of thing. But he's willing to do what Daemon would never do, which is kill his own brother. I mean, we got Daemon out here trapped on Shutter Island having like a really horrible experience where he is facing basically Aemond, but it's himself. And that idea of like, Aemond is willing to kill his brother to take the throne. That is something Daemon would never do. But then in his mind, he's also like, okay, I would have been next in line, but my brother gave this to Rhaenyra, and now in his own mind, he's like killing Rhaenyra for this throne. I think he's really battling with that.
There's just so much emotional turmoil that's going on with all of these
Yes.
characters mixed in different ways. I think for Aemond, I mean, my heart goes out to you, dude, because if you thought that Aegon was very childish at times before and very much huge chip on his shoulder, I must prove my. He's going to be so much worse now if he is alive because he's going to feel
Yep.
like nobody's going to take him even more seriously because he almost got killed in this battle. He is going to make your life miserable. And Daemon,
How is that any different than what was already going on? Aegon was already making Aemond miserable for years. I mean, the real question is he going to have him killed? I mean, I don't think he can. It looks
yeah,
bad for the family, but like, can he banish him, send him off? Can Aemond just keep him, if he's not dead, just keep him sort of bedridden? I feel like this is something Alicent is going to want as well, to just kind of keep it all quiet. Her and Aemon can work together.
I think what they're going to want to do is just try to make Aegon even into more of this Hollow King. I think they're going to want to make him appear more and more like, oh, you're just the face of this operation. You're not running anything. We're going to just continue to do things more and more behind your back. And it's going to be easier now because if Aegon is better at it, if he has to recover, you can do so much more without him ever really knowing. And Helena doesn't want anything to do with this business, so it's not exactly like it's going to be hard to keep things from her. But since you brought up Daemon,
Oh, Daemon.
he's going through things for a number of different reasons. I think his situation is different than Aemon's mostly in that Rhaenyra is actually good at her job. She's
Mhm.
actually a good, capable ruler, and Daemon may think in his head that he's a good, capable ruler, but he's not. He's impulsive, he's reckless versus Aemond, who would actually be pretty well suited to it. I think this is, once again, I'm not trying to just hit this theme of fate over and over and over again, but I think Daemon is really struggling with this idea that why was he never chosen? Why
Mhm.
is he not special enough to be king? Why did fate put it in this situation where Viserys ends up having Rhaenyra? Rhaenyra ends up being the heir. She, at least to him, at the time in which all this was decided, did not have any of the qualifications for it.
Right.
And he's just replaying this over and over and over again. And I think he thinks subconsciously, I can still be the one to change this. I don't like the idea that all these decisions were made without me getting to be actively involved in them. But sometimes life just doesn't work like that, Damon. And not to get too just like, oh, things are what they are, but you got to find a way to accept it at some point, my guy. This isn't good for you.
No, and of course, this is all coming out while he's at Harrenhal, this like damp, haunted castle, and
Yeah.
it's just like, is this really just coming out in him, or is Alice some sort of actual influential figure in this? Is she doing this? Is she bringing this out in him and everyone in the castle? I mean, like, she's got some serious powers going on in here. There was part of me that was starting to wonder, if she's somehow working with the Team Green to keep him haunted and to keep him there so that everyone else can do battle and start, taking out some of Team Black. Like, what's the motivation for her to be haunting him if that's what she's doing?
I think she's bringing out a part of him that is already there in some ways. I think she is deliberately haunting him to a certain extent. I think
Mhm.
she's haunting him to the extent that she wants to sort of see the true essence of people and she wants that to come to the surface. And maybe that is what she's kind of looking for regarding the future of Westeros, the entire Seven Kingdoms, all of that, and then some. She's sort of her own bizarre worthiness check here in a way, where I feel like if she wasn't there, would Damon be experiencing all of these things, these visions, these hauntings? Probably not, but at the same time, I think they would eventually overwhelm him. I think the advantage, odd as it is to say, of Alice being here now is Damon has a chance to actually conquer all of this. And maybe she ends up helping with it. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe he ends up finding a way himself. But I think in order for Damon to move forward and actually be who Team Black needs him to be, which is somebody who's functioning, somebody who is useful, somebody that Rhaenyra doesn't have to keep answering questions about in front of her
Mhm.
terrible council, he has to figure out how he can live with who he is and live with where he's going. And I think facing this stuff head on for a guy so action oriented like him, it's ultimately going to be the best way to go about it. It's just going to be really, really hard.
No, this is something that he needs to go through if he's going to actually be able to stand next to Rhaenyra and support her the way that he needs to support her. Like, if his real inside of him is that he just wants to be the king, then he needs to know that that's what it is and that he can't actually support her.
Team Black, you got. I say this as somebody who loves Team Black, but you guys really need to get your you know what together. You are so unruly at
She
this
needs a
point.
better counsel. Like, her
Yes.
counsel are so disrespectful to
Yeah.
her. And even her son, Jace, questioning where she is and what she's doing. It's kind of like, stop it. She's the queen.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're going to ask those questions, you don't ask them in front of the council. Like, you're still a really young guy. Have some respect for her as your mother, but also as your queen.
I still like Jace. He was annoying in this episode. It's just I understand you might be eager to do some things here, Jace, but number one, it's not your time. Number two, Rhaenyra is the queen.
Right.
Number three, just be quiet for a little bit and listen, because she's gonna tell you about the prince who was promised. There are a lot of things you still don't even know. And
Right.
the rest of this council is just downright abysmal. She's got
Yeah.
terrible advisors. She has people who don't really seem to have a thorough plan as to what it is they want to do. I think they are relying on the number of their dragons here, and they've been a little bit defensive. And Rhaenyra is in this point now, and she articulated this really well. She knows that there's no other choice now. She knows that there's nothing else that can be done to prevent potential bloodshed. So she's just like, okay, let's go ahead. Let's move forward with this now. But once again, Damon isn't there. You're missing one of your most important people.
Yeah.
Rhaenys basically offers to be a big part of this operation. And
Mhm.
I think she is willingly going into this knowing that her fate may not end up being great. But I think she's lived through this life where she never got a chance to be queen. She never got a chance to do a lot of these things that she wanted to do. This was her opportunity. If she was going to go out, she was going to go out on her own terms and her own way. And there's something pretty beautiful about that.
And speaking of opportunities, let's just talk about Alicent because this is an episode of opportunities. And Alicent is in this position now that she knows the truth about what Viserys actually meant after her conversation with Rhaenyra, but she's not telling anybody about it. She is taking it as still an opportunity. It would be, Rhaenyra's word versus Alicent's word, which is already what's going on. So it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter to continue keeping on because if Alicent doesn't keep the position that she has and keeps her family in the position that they have, she's a dead woman walking and she knows it. So she has said basically that whatever Viserys's intentions were, they're gone with him, and they are where they are right now. And I mean, Larys is like, I'm fine with that because he really just wants to be on the side that's winning. But let's also talk about Alicent drinking that tea, because wow, was that ever trending last night on Twitter? I understand as well why. I mean, we saw this whole thing in the past with Rhaenyra and the
Mhm.
tea and how Alicent treated her, and it wasn't great. And she really was sort of on her high horse about it. And now how the tables have turned.
Alicent she's such a mess at this point. I mean, it's making her very interesting and entertaining to watch, but
Yeah.
she's going through some really, really terrible stuff.
Yeah, here's the thing about it. Like, Viserys has only been gone a couple of weeks, and she, loved him in her way, and she was with him for a long time. We saw her still, like, holding the little dragon statuette, and, like, that was a big, huge part of her life. She
Mhm.
grew into an adult, being married to him and being, honorable to him and loyal to him. It's only been a couple weeks since her husband has passed. And I know there'll be people out there being like, well, why is she hooking up with Kristen Cole? That happens. For anyone who's new to the channel, I'm a former funeral director. It is very common for after people, have lost loved ones, spouses, partners, for people to hook up with people very quickly, looking for any sort of like stop to the grief and to be able to kind of like just feel a little bit normal for a second there. So what Alicent is doing, it's not abnormal. I've seen it happen. I've even seen it happen at funerals at the funeral home. So,
All
it's
right.
pretty quick that stuff can happen. People want to bond and they want to feel like, yeah, I'm still alive. I can still feel something, kind of thing. So for her to then also be like, oh, now I gotta drink this tea. It's a lot.
Yeah, she's gone through losing Viserys. She's trying to find some sort of meaning. Her father is no longer around,
No.
so she doesn't feel like she has any influence anymore. Her son, the king, is not listening to her. It's a really bad spot, and I can't help but feel sorry for Alicent in a lot of different ways, just because this is all a misunderstanding that got to this point. She's tried to do her best. She doesn't want to be here, but what does she have left to do? And this is going to be the big challenge for her
Yeah.
the rest of the season. And if you have to pair with Larys, of all people, in order to figure this out, then so be it. Larys, aka Don't Worry, Harrenhal's Fine, Larys, which you're a little bit big for your britches, Larys. I will just say that you're smart, but you also don't underestimate people. That's all. That's just all I'm gonna say.
I think one of the mistakes that Rhaenyra made in her conversation last week with Alicent was not giving her any promises. Like, it's one thing for both of these women to realize that there was a miscommunication with Viserys. Okay, cool. But what happens if Alicent is like, okay, there was a miscommunication, so we're going to make sure that you get on the throne? How does she then know that she's going to be okay, or that her family's going to be okay, or that people aren't going to, go against her because she'll look like, a usurper sort of thing? How does that all get fixed? Rhaenyra should have offered her something to be like, I'm gonna take care of you. You know what? You didn't know, it was a mistake. I'm going to make sure that your family is taken care of. We'll just like wash our hands of this. I will make sure that, the kingdom knows that it was an honest mistake and that I have your back. I feel like possibly if some of that was out there, she would have had a better shot of Alicent being like, okay.
Yeah, I think she could have tried something more. It's hard to say whether or not anything else would work, but at the end,
But nothing is not going to work.
no, nothing is never going to work. I think you what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You guys are already in the midst of this just widespread conflict that is just going to engulf basically all of Westeros. And I don't think if you offer Alicent something in that moment, she's then going to go and just tattle on you to
No.
Aegon. Like none of that was going to happen. It's just now, because of all these events that have happened, we're in this position that we're in where they all kind of have to live with the consequences of their actions. And the last thing I do want to say here is that this is gonna sound like just such a generic thing to say. I will own that. Don't take the dragons for granted, people. And by that I mean the CGI, the action
Mhm.
sequences, the choreography. I think we have all grown really numb to the expense, like the technical know-how of some of this stuff that we don't ever really want to give it credit. And it's just, it's phenomenal what they were able to pull off in this to make these dragons look as close to realistic as they could. I didn't, at least I didn't feel like I was watching this being taken out of the world by some bad computer animation effects. This was not like 50% of all superhero movies where I sit there and be like, okay, Spider-Man is not swinging over those buildings. It felt realistic enough for me.
It did. The thing that felt a bit unrealistic is that Vhagar can be hidden over and over and over again. He's so huge. Like him hiding in the forest is like, okay, maybe I'll give that a pass. But Rhaenys going over that castle and Vhagar just coming out, I'm just like, Rhaenys has so much experience doing this and being a warrior and being in battle. And like, how would she not know that that's probably the only place that Vhagar is going to be?
Vhagar has a cloak of invisibility. He purchased it at Dragon Mart several months ago, and that's how. No, it's a good beef. I don't know, but
Yeah, that's my only real like I put my beef on
yeah.
hat on for that. Is my only real beef is just she has so much experience. And Aemond is like 16 years old. Like he's really young and he doesn't have a lot of experience. Like he's got a great strategic mind and that's great, but it's one thing to be strategic in the boardroom and another to be like actually out in battle like that. And I know him and Vhagar, obviously they've got a bond together, but we've also seen Aemond riding Vhagar when he was unable to control him with everything that happened with Luke. Luke couldn't control his dragon. Aemond couldn't control his dragon. These dragons were out of control and they were just doing what they want. And Vhagar seems like a dragon he's so old at this point that he's
Yeah.
just like, I do what I want when I want. And yeah, Aemond, you can ride me and that's all great and everything. Cool, but I'm still gonna do what I want when I want. Where Rhaenys and her bond with her dragon and how much experience she has, would she not have known that that's probably the only place that he is?
I just wonder
I
if
don't know.
it's tricky. I do wonder if so much of this is you're making these quick decisions in the
Yeah,
moment. Maybe because
yep.
Rhaegar is so big, you think, okay, it can't possibly be there. But I mean, it's a good beef to have. I will say that ever since we got past the first episode, House
Mhm.
of Dragon has been on a pretty good winning streak now. I
Yes.
think we've had 3 good episodes. A
Yeah.
lot of great stuff has happened. The table is set for at least some other sort of showdown. I don't think we're going to see anything on the scale of what we had here at Rook's Rest next week, but we'll see what happens. We're going to have a preview for what is coming up here soon. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so you guys do not miss that. Also, join our Patreon. We have that link in the description below. It is a great way to support us further. And
Mhm.
thank you to our patrons for your
Thank you.
support. We'll see you guys here next time.